September 11th, 2018, 17 years after the Twin Towers collapsed. I'm Dana Durnford, your host tonight, thenuclearproctologist.org. Current hurricane, there's 3 of them coming ashore. They're a few days away, and you want to think about previous hurricanes last year where they downplayed the hurricanes, and they were devastating, right? That was Hurricane Irma, I believe. Yeah, Irma was a Cat 5 when it came ashore. This, once it came ashore, they stopped mentioning the words gust, I noticed. And here's some footage of a hurricane during this in the off islands last year. Get a load of this coming up. I've been in a lot of storms. I'm from the Atlantic, right? We get with the tail of all the hurricanes. But I had never seen a storm do that with my own 2 eyes. We had Hurricane Harvey. These were incredible storm surges, and which remind me, I better mention that right now, about storm surging in these storms, in these types of perfect storms. Now, we've never seen these numbers. Unfortunately, before we get to that, tonight I'm doing a 911 show here, right now. And let me turn that music off and then down and then off. My apologies. I just wanted to adjust the background because I smurfed that up already. Hi to everybody. Got an amazing show for everybody tonight. So originally we were going to talk about, this morning, we were going to talk about day 15 of, I just came back from 4 months on the ocean, the Zodiac and the sailboat, Zodiacs. And I'm a researcher, and I like to take it to a whole different level. But we're going to cover the 911 from 17 years ago. And so I put together a bunch of these clips last year, and we pulled them out of the rabbit's hat. And we're going to play them for you here today. Now, the problem with this story, it's a really simple equation. This is the Pentagon 17 years ago. Look at the hole in the circle. Was the actual hole. The windows are intact, or the framing is anyway, so there's no way the plane went through the windows. When you look at the line, there's, people will say, well, they jumped out of the plane and flew the plane in, but you got to realize a plane actually leaves wreckage. I know that's hard for people to wrap their minds around, but it's true. If you go look up plane wreck, you'll actually find there's wrecks of planes. Despite the story you've been fed for the last 17 years, we find it highly improbable there was an actual plane. Otherwise, we would have found evidence. They didn't even find the sneakers or the wedding rings of the people. Some people say it was a drone. And when you look at the documentation, I thought I turned that music off, Dana. I like it. I forget that you guys are hearing it. It's too bad I can't just play it here in my headphones and not mess up all the equipment I'm doing, because I like the music, but it doesn't sound right. Now that's what Hollywood does, the documentaries. And this is what I literally do all the time, is these little documentaries. An interesting thing about 911 and the airplanes.
So, the hijack code.
Oh,
Now, pilots are trained, if there's a hijacking in progress, to punch 4 digits into a transponder. And the digits are 7500, 7500. It only takes a split second to do this. And it's called squawking, the universal hijack code. And of the 4 airliners, there were 8 pilots, and not one pilot squawked that code. And that's a very strange thing. So we've made that into a point, just because it sheds some doubt on the whole hijacking story.
Yeah, nobody squawked out 4 digits.
Let me. You know, I really, I'm serious about it.
And so a plane's supposed to leave a wreckage. This is right after. Now, I put the fire in there, but this is just shortly after the collapse, before all the equipment gets there on the site. And it's hard to imagine how a plane, now there was a lot of construction on those buildings. Well, the plane is big, right? Everybody agrees with me on this one. That's the actual hole. So a plane came in and missed everything, leaped over everything, then it dove into that little hole.
8 meters across. The hole is too small.
There's Webster Tarpley.
The original hole is even smaller. There's the original hole.
Now he's down in the bottom right-hand corner. See the hole? I put the rest of the pictures in there. But this is what he's employing.
This is one of the first pictures made of the Pentagon after the impact.
Down in the bottom right.
That's the hole in the wall.
Right, and there's nothing on the ground. Now, so why ain't there any wreckage like that at the site? And how did the plane go through the hole and not leave any wreckage behind when the hole is not even all the way busted? Is an interesting...
The media like to show the front after the facade collapsed. Again, this is still too small for a Boeing. And the other problem is that the wreckage, there's no wreckage of a commercial airliner here. There are these little...
Right. Now,
give us any better idea of how much of the plane actually
this
impacted
is
the
the
building?
same day.
You know, it might have appeared that way, but from my close-up inspection, there's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere near the Pentagon. The only site is the actual site of the building that's crashed in, and as I said, the only pieces left that you can see are small enough that you could pick up in your hand. There are no large tail sections, wing sections, a fuselage, nothing like that anywhere around, which would indicate that the entire plane crashed into the side of the Pentagon and then caused the side to collapse. Now, even though if you look at the pictures of the Pentagon, you see that the floors have all collapsed, that didn't happen immediately. It wasn't until almost about 45 minutes later. But from my close-up inspection, there's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere.
So that's as clear as you can get it, isn't it? Let alone the picture is pretty clear too. Where's the crash plane? And you see the truck down in the bottom behind my shoulder. The fence in front of it, closer to me, is not even damaged. And so superficial fire on the back of the truck with no damage to the truck. The building, it was sliced straight down. This was a new section.
Against that.
This was about
as we speak,
when it collapsed.
there's still things going on.
At that point right then.
Plans taken into account the use of the plane in a terrorist attack, and generally, what would the country do?
Well, I'm not going to tell you the specifics of that. The answer to your question is yes.
Yes, just the Pentagon.
Now from Washington, Kelly.
So here's a couple of
Hello,
clips
Kelly.
just
Kelly
before
Arena, are you there?
the Twin Towers had collapsed.
All right, Kelly Arena's
here.
okay, there's Kelly. Kelly, what have
Hi
you
there.
learned?
Okay, well, an FBI official has just
Amazing
told
show
CNN
today.
that they are investigating, but they have not yet determined whether or not this was indeed a terrorist act. The official that I spoke to said that so far there has been no communication, no one claiming responsibility for either of those crashes.
So nobody admitting to the crashes right away.
Princess, Orla, what can you tell us?
But BBC...
Well, what we've had here locally is a claim of responsibility. The initial report came from the Reuters news agency. It was quoting Abu Dhabi television and saying that they had received a call from the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine, claiming that it was responsible for the plane crashes into both of the trade towers. Now, since then, we've managed to check with local spokesmen for that organization, for the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine, and 2 local spokesmen here in the West Bank and Ramallah have denied that. So already there is doubt being cast on this claim, but I think it has to be treated with a
grain of salt. There was some really interesting exchanges on that day. We got some problems with my audio, I think, here today. Let me solve that. Maybe I'm too close to the microphone. Who knows? So there's a hole in the wall. We're getting feedback from something today. Okay, and so you can see how the wall, that should have been cut off by then. My apologies to everybody. Let me solve that right quick here. And that's a little excess for even me, so I'll turn it down a little tiny bit and move in a little closer. It won't be all solved yet by tomorrow, whatever's going on. It must be a ground wire or something here, my fault. When you look at the people, they're not responding like you would with a major earthquake or a major catastrophe. Nobody's being sent in the context of, no. When you look over to your left-hand side of the screen, you see these perfect cuts. And you see the fire in the back of the building. You don't see anything to indicate how the building got destroyed in the front. Here's a better way of looking at it. And so this is the outside edge of the building where the plane hit it. Now that might sound crazy to you, but it shouldn't. I'm just playing around with the equalizer, see if I can fix that. That's annoying in the background. Much better. And I'll just boost my volume a bit. And it is what it is tonight. Some nights, not very often will we have that problem, but there it is. I can't stop that. I'm zoomed in too much. Sorry, let me go back. So there's no indication of a severe plane crash, according to the media and according to the documentation. This is the documentation, right? This is inside the building on the other side where the plane came out. So the hole on the other side is about the same size as this side, but it doesn't look like it was either. Certainly, there's no way to assume that this was a plane or a missile, because it couldn't have been. This obviously was a staged event, a false flag, capitalizing on people not being able to investigate it at the time, right? Because it's the Pentagon, no one's going to be able to go checks and balances to these people. It just built this section too, by the way, so it was all military. And so we don't see the damage to the side of the Pentagon anywhere. This is shortly after. I can do a better job of controlling that, maybe. So as you look at the ground, there's nothing there on the ground, and that stuff never even got shifted for the plane to come in. And you look at the hole is right here. And look at the windows alongside of it. The center is still intact. Apparently these windows were $10,000 each because this was the front of the Pentagon, the most vulnerable part of the Pentagon. And so this is 17 years ago. There was a lot of atrocities committed in the name of the damage. This is 17 years ago. Most people can't even remember the details, I'm sure. No damage to the windows. Would that not make you suspicious that a plane might not have hit the building? When you spray foam over the area and you see that there's actual windows intact, and that the hole is only hole visible, is like Webster Tarpley was talking about earlier, is not even a complete hole. No, that's shocking to do that to your own people. Here's a prime example of what WTF, you know? And so you can see the different fires in different places, but there's no wreckage of a plane anywhere. It's really something. They blew something up there, obviously, but and then the building collapses about 35 minutes later. I played the clip. You heard the explosion in the background. That was when it was collapsing. This is before it collapsed. Why did it collapse? What made that collapse, I wonder? Nobody's ever answered any questions like this. This is to the far right of... And so they didn't find the bodies. They didn't get sneakers. They didn't get wedding rings. They didn't get closure for the families and the friends and the loved ones. And they put in these imaginary, symbolic gesture in order to keep the lie alive forever and ever and ever at the Pentagon. One of their biggest crimes, they got it proudly displayed out front because there was no plane, obviously. And this is why you hear about the no planers, because they're directing you to the Twin Towers. Everybody's like, Dana, there's no plane at the Twin Towers, Dana. Say these words. There was no plane at the Pentagon, right? Because you don't hear those words. You don't mention those words. Scream, there was planes at the Twin. There was no planes. But that's the game. There was actually no planes here, right? So they misdirected everybody, and they just flew drones into the Twin Towers. And we're getting to that, trust me. Netanyahu says 911 was good for Israel. By the way, Israel is the fourth biggest producer of weapons on the planet. Now, I'm going to show you a clip I mashed together. This is symbolic of all the wars since the war on terror began, which was September 11, 2001. This is Syria. To get 10,000 ISIL. This is a city of 1 million people that you leveled to get 10,000 ISIL.
The coalition averaged
and the background is
one
from the
bombing
last
mission per minute.
wars.
Allied bombing was relentless.
In recent years.
Demoralizing. By the B-52s, the F-16s,
This was
CH-10s,
backgrounds
and
from
bringing large amounts
911
of
war.
munitions to bear against him.
The military. 19,000 soldiers, women and men, each year are raped in the military.
We have no argument with the people of Iraq.
We struck all day and all night.
For the innocents caught in this conflict, I pray for their safety.
Yeah, you heard George Bush saying he prays. I know. Now, I'm just going to touch upon this. This is Dr. Judy Wood. I usually call her Woods, but people freak out when I do that. It's not meant as a disrespect or a different name, but Wood, I think, is the right. You'll have to figure it out on your own right now. But
Weird
you can
fires.
find a video on my site of her. Weird
And
fires.
that all of West Broadway, all the cars were toasted. Patrick Conley, one of the firefighters, tried to take shelter in there and decided he didn't want to stay in there. He wanted to come out. The dust had gone up and blocked out 100% of the sunlight, so it was pitch black. But he didn't feel safe in there and came back out. I think he's might be the one that left the door open. And he started up the street, and he couldn't see where he was going. Then he said, thank goodness the cars started lighting up, because then he could see where he was going, including this car. He walked past that one, and cars just lighting up as he passed them.
Over
And that was
1,400 cars
right
done that.
after the tower's demise, not during.
That was after the tower's demise, not during it. And there was over 1,400 that she documented, cars that randomly caught fire. And I'm going to let her finish telling these couple of little parts there.
But right after. He walked out, that's where the door is down there, up to intersection C, turned and went over that direction. But you'll see everything's toasted right up to about there. People think that maybe stuff on fire fell on him, debris on fire. Well, why did it just go down this canyon? Why did no debris land on any of the rooftops? Unburned people. These guys are going for lunch. Not worried about the fire. Do, ho-hum. They're not worried about any cars blowing up. What exactly is on fire here? And there's some of them that said that water initially had no effect on the car fires. But how many people want to be hanging around fires looking casual? So paper not burning, but vehicles.
And think about that. The paper and trees around her didn't catch fire. And there was over 1,400 cars that randomly caught fire. I'm going to play another little clip of Dr. Judy Wood. You can find her on my site and then go out from there and find her site. Or vice versa.
Notice the leaves on the trees. Didn't get burnt. This is, again, the swamp. Lots of toasted cars. Like, what happened to this guy? Looks like the engine's gone.
Yeah, how did these cars melt down, but the trees and signs didn't? Now, this is Pennsylvania. And now Pennsylvania had a plane crash to the right. And I put pictures to the left to try to orchestrate to you what a plane crash can look like. Or to really give you an idea how big of a plane is. And so they didn't find the bodies. The official story was that the plane went down into an old mine shaft. And so then the question is, why not go down to the mine shaft and bring the bodies out? Here's a dock. Now, do you see any plane wreck in that picture? Behind me. That's from the helicopter. Here's one of the sites out there where actually faked in a plane wreckage. Yeah? Faked in a plane wreckage. See, like you see over there, that's what a wreckage should look like. And you can see there's no wreckage here. But there's a site out there that actually faked a plane wreckage in, not the footage, but in the picture that I just showed you. I'll show you another picture that they had done. But normally a plane wreckage leaves plane wreckage. You know what I mean? And so this was another fake picture of Pennsylvania. That was only had two of them from a website where they had faked the pictures to say, look, see, plane wreckage. But there really wasn't. There wasn't plane wreckage. And when you think about the hole, and you think about the size of the plane, it's not hard to imagine. That's a little odd when you don't find anything there that resembles a plane wreck, right? Like, what a plane wreck is. You can look it up on your own if you've never seen it before. By the way, I feel bad for you. And Alex has pushed the Holy Grail, which was Building 7. And Building 7 had fell symmetrically down into its own footprint, same as the Twin Towers. We'll get to that. And that's a plane wreck there, look. You didn't see it at the Pentagon, and you didn't see it at Pennsylvania. So there was no planes there, but everybody's like, there's no planes at the Twin Towers. There's no planes at the Twin Towers. It's okay. It's okay. Get some sleep. You'll be okay in the morning. Armageddon, 1998. It's simpler to drive a drone into the Twin Towers than it is to fake it. The drones were around till recently. Now, they were doing that in 1947, flying them through the nuclear plumes. Okay? Armageddon, 1998, there goes the Twin Towers and a bunch of other places. Now, it don't sound familiar 3 years before 2001, does it? No irony in that story. No irony in this story, though. 911 gave rise to a new sacred cash cow called the Homeland Security. You're Al-Qaeda unless you give me everything, access to everything. Cancer rates triple. If you close your curtains, you're Al-Qaeda in Britain, by the way. Cancer rates triple among New York police officers who responded to 9/11 event, staged event, false flag. The 911 aircraft still in the air long after because of the beacon symbols. And Rumsfeld, remember, the day before the Twin Towers, he had come out and said there was $2.3 trillion missing from the Pentagon. And the same spot where the detonation happened, all the people that did die, they were the accountants. About 120 of them were in that section. I don't think any of them survived. Tony Farrell tells a story about London bombing and 911. It's very compelling how 7-Eleven, they were carrying out drills at the exact same places at the exact same times as the terrorists attacked. Al-Qaeda got them. Al-Qaeda got everybody tortured. Now everybody got to get groped and molested at the airports. Yeah. I was just got it. My last job was at Tim Hortons. Now I'm going to grope your youngins. Yeah, you can't stop because I'll give you a $10,000 fine. That'll teach you to fly. Historic court case against the BBC cover-up of the 911 evidence. Historic court case. So when BBC was being challenged in court, because you got the British public, you still got to pay them money every year as a citizen of UK, right? You used to have you probably still do. Got to have a license to have a TV in UK. That's not a propaganda weapon. No, not at all. By the way, he added 508 post 911 domestic terrorism defendants. Every one of them had a CIA, FBI handler, a spook handler. That's some scary stuff. Okay, so here's something that Alex Jones has never covered. His clip was supposed to be right there alongside of that. Or Joe Rogan. Or that other kooky guy was there. Tenants. United States Customs Service. This is an interesting story. I'm going to play you a clip. Shock you. Step back into the archive of 17 years ago. You got a younger Dana. United States Customs Service, United States Department of Commerce, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, United States Department of Agricultural. You had to get rid of that because they would have started investigating, and you got rid of all their tools by dropping them and splitting them all up. The Peace Corps. Export-Import Bank of the United States. There's some shady characters there, I tell you what. There's some more shady characters. This is the interior, believe it or not, of the Building 6, 17 years ago. The entire guts is missing. Get a load of this. I'll break it down for you as quick as I can. It's definitely worth watching. It'll really... I take it, we don't stick all the way on this. We also go into some other stuff.
That's the inside of Building 6.
I'll turn it up.
The walls are intact, the basement is intact, and nobody has a friggin' clue what could do this. I wonder what's going through his head. There's no desks, there's no chairs, no office furniture, there's no bathrooms. Everything is rusted, everything is hanging symmetrically straight down, and the floor is intact. Does it look like any big chunks of metal came down here and smashed all this in? What smashed all this in? If it got smashed in, nothing, say, or you would see it here right now. The basement's intact, the walls are intact. And so this is something, you know, I can't explain it. It's not a nuclear explosion. It's not nanothermite that done something like that. It's not an air blast over it or some kind of obvious thing. There's people everywhere. Nobody knows what happened to this. It's a big friggin' mystery. And it's certainly not explosives. It's certainly not some kind of incendiary devices. It's not some kind of kinetic energy devices, even though you see how everything is hanging, but it's not kinetically smacked apart and blown apart. Everything is symmetrical. So there's no, and everything is, all the offices are empty and void of the floors and the wall boards and doors and any kind of framing. It's just totally missing. This, you can see in here, is what the only thing I've seen with ceilings left in it, just that one little corner section over here. But everything else is obviously missing.
Yeah, what sucked it out like that? How could you suck
where
all
one
the
of the
furniture
towers
out
kind
of the
of
rooms?
almost spilled over, and people said that's what crushed the inside of it. But now we finally see that certainly wasn't a factor. Nobody knows what happened here. And let's go and look at that post right here. See that post right there? There's a better shot of it. Now look at around his feet there. You can see everything is like it's a disassociation. It never got crushed. You can see that.
Pole's not
crushed.
damaged, right?
Everything is missing.
There's no damage to that pole.
Everything.
See, that's the
all the
damaged thing
colors missing,
imaginable.
all the walls and everything else, like I say. And
stripped.
It's just even reaching way
not two,
into
but
these
many
places. It's like it all got sucked out. But where did it go? It didn't go down to the floor. Because there's the floor. See that car there? The parking lot's still intact. All this never went down to the parking lot. It got broke a bit, but it never went down there. And you can see everything is missing. There's no indication these were offices, or this was an office building at any given time. And you can see where one of the towers spilled over, and people said that's what done the damage. But you can see, yeah, it spilled over, but that stuff never took out the core of a 500,000 square foot building. And I don't know what done it, but there it is. That's the inside of building 6. The walls are intact, the basement is intact, and nobody has a friggin' clue what could do this. And that's where one of the towers kind of almost spilled over, and people said that's what crushed the inside of it. But now we finally see that certainly wasn't a factor. Nobody knows. According to Wiki on February 1st, 2003, the Space Shuttle Columbia, trying to re-enter Earth's atmosphere at Mach 25, 17,500 miles per hour, or 27,359 kilometers an hour.
Encountering the atmosphere above the Pacific Ocean to the north of the Hawaiian Islands.
Willie, we're with you on remaining APU start.
Pilot Willie McCool calling down that he's starting the 2 remaining auxiliary power units on board now, so all 3 will be up and running. They supply power for the shuttle's hydraulic systems.
Sorry about that.
Columbia's altitude now 71 statute miles as it enters Earth's atmosphere above the Pacific Ocean en route to the Kennedy Space Center. Its speed 17,000 miles per hour.
The shuttle levels its wings, nose up about 45 degrees, and a series of 4 banks meant to slow the shuttle down.
Columbia with wings level and nose angled up about 40 degrees to control heating as it descends into the atmosphere. Its altitude now 68 miles. As Columbia descends into the atmosphere and approaches the continental United States, it will perform the first in a series of 4 banks. It performs as it approaches the Kennedy Space Center. The first bank to the right, then back to the left, then back to the right, and then a final bank to the left as it approaches Kennedy and the shuttle landing facility runway. Those designed to dissipate speed for the shuttle as it descends into the atmosphere toward landing.
First bank slows them down at 13,200 miles per hour, or 21,200 kilometers an hour.
40 miles. Speed 13,200 miles per hour.
At 200,000 feet up, not only is the shuttle screaming along at 5 miles a second, but the temperature from the friction in the air reaches 3,000 degrees. Both Wiki and the New York Times says Columbia disintegrated, and Fox News says disintegration. By contrast, New Scientist reported Columbia was traveling at over 20,000 kilometers an hour when it broke up. But we know they recovered over 80,000 pieces of the Columbia, like the landing gear, with the wheels still on it.
Moving the 89,400 pieces of Columbia is expected to be completed by October the 1st.
Flight 93 alleged to have crashed in the field, and the landing gear is alleged to have atomized. In Shanksville, Pennsylvania, this was a passenger jet that was traveling 26 times slower than the space shuttle at only 500 miles an hour. It leaves no wreckage for first responders, who never even found a wedding ring for the loved ones to have closure. Maybe it should head over to CNN and report a wreckage miles away.
And Miles, it ended at the site you can see over my left shoulder, marked by the American flag. That is where United Flight 93 crashed into the earth and nearly vaporized after a heroic...
And just like Flight 93 in Shanksville, Flight 77 at the Pentagon leaves no seats, wings, luggage, engines, tails, not even bodies. Not even a pair of sneakers survived Flight 77 crash at the Pentagon.
From my close-up inspection, there's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere near the Pentagon. The only site is the actual site of the building that's crashed in, and as I said, the only pieces left that you can see are small enough that you could pick up in your hand. There are no large tail sections, wing sections, a fuselage, nothing like that anywhere around, which would indicate that the entire plane crashed into the side of the Pentagon.
We got over 80,000 pieces of the Space Shuttle Columbia traveling 26 times faster at 21,200 kilometers an hour.
Moving the 89,400 pieces of Columbia is expected to be completed by October the 1st.
It is hard to conceive, but 3 days ago, both World Trade Towers rose 1,362 feet into the sky. Engineers at the firm that built the building's best guess to account for the missing 1,200 feet of material from each tower is that large portions simply vaporized into the dust that rained down on New Yorkers immediately after the collapse. It was that powerful.
Get out of here!
We're talking here about 43,600 windows, 600,000 square feet of glass, 200,000 tons of structural steel, 5 million square feet of gypsum, 6 acres of marble, and 425,000 cubic yards of concrete, turned in good part into a cloud, says environmental medical doctor Stephen Levin.
I was astonished at the degree to which solid materials were turned into pulverized dust as a consequence of that building collapse. I think it was striking.
425,000 cubic yards of cement turned to dust. Let's divide that by the typical 8-yard cement trucks you see every day for context, and that would work out to 53,125 cement trucks. Let me say that again, 53,125 of your average, typical everyday cement trucks. And let's say each truck is 30 feet long. Multiply that by 53,125 is 1.6 million foot, or 318 miles of trucks in a line, tailgate to bumper, give or take 50 or 60 miles. Or think of 10 container ships full of cement trucks to understand how much cement turned to dust.
In 10 seconds.
6 acres of marble turned to dust. Look up 6-acre islands for sale, and if you still can't wrap your mind around how much marble that is, imagine you have to go on that island with a wheelbarrow and bring 6 acres of heavy marble to a boat, and you can't text or tweet or Facebook or YouTube and tell you collected 6 acres of really heavy marble by yourself, and it's not dust yet. Over 5 million square feet of gypsum turned to dust. 5 million square feet of raw gypsum would fill up a half a container ship. But it wasn't raw gypsum. The Twin Towers skyscrapers were full of gypsum wallboards and ceilings, so add another container ship of material and turned to dust.
11 seconds.
The Tar Valley in southern France has the world's tallest vehicle bridge. It's 1,125 feet. Driving along the viaducts, it is said to feel like you're flying, and it has a series of 7 columns. Each one are 290 foot tall, and they weigh 700 tons. So the 200,000 tons of structural steel that turned to dust on September 11, 2001, if you divide it by the 700-ton towers, that's 285 towers that turned to dust. It's a lot. They're big towers, and that's a lot of dust. 285 of them is enough towers for 40 of those bridges. Or consider 200,000 tons of structural steel is enough to build 4 of the biggest container ships on Earth.
Turned to dust in 11 seconds.
There was 600,000 square foot of glass, and the weight is, you multiply 1.7 pounds for every 1/8 of an inch of a square foot of glass. And so that works out to 97 million pounds, or 2,448 transport trucks at 40,000 pounds per truck. It would create a 146,880 foot or 29-mile traffic jam of transport trucks full of glass, bumper to bumper. And that also turned to dust on September 11, 2001.
In 11 seconds.
But most interesting, in the mix, they are looking, they think, at specks of steel that used to be beams and elevators, marble from the lobby floor and facings. So what were once the strongest architectural elements in the 2 towers were pulverized, large portions turned into clouds.
In 11 seconds.
Yes, I am.
Can you tell us what your vantage point
good
is
stuff
and what
coming
you've seen
out
so
of.
far?
Here comes the good stuff.
We got. I heard on the radio that one of the towers was on fire, and we went to a high point in our building, which is on the 25th floor, and you had a clear view of the both World Trade Centers, and the one tower was smoking hard. And there was another plane that was flying low, and we just looked at it, and before you know it, just kamikaze boom right into the other tower, and mass explosion, windows flying. It was horrible. Still distraught looking at it.
Were you close enough to see or get a general idea of what kind of plane that was that flew in the second time?
Well, I'm not an expert on.
Right, did you hear what she said? She said, did you see what kind of plane it was?
Well, I'm not an expert on planes, but it wasn't didn't seem like a big passenger jet. It was a smaller type plane because it made some pretty radical turn, and you know they were flying low, and you're not used to see big planes flying over Manhattan because I don't think you're allowed to. But it was pretty tough.
And explain to me again what your vantage point is, where you are in the city looking at this.
We're in Chelsea. It's like 25th
But
Street.
it didn't look like a passenger plane to the eyewitness. How interesting is that?
Good Lord.
Now get a load of this. You see that stick sticking up there? I'm going to play for you in a sec. And, gotta bring yourself. Hang on, I gotta go over to a different window to take advantage of me. Get me smaller. I want to see my big ears, my big nose, my fat eyebrows. And shut up. Okay, so I'm going to show you a bunch of these clips. And what I want you to think about is this is a building here is 700 feet high. And so here's, say, we'll underscore it, but we'll call it, say, 800 feet all the way up. Now, this is the center I-beams, the Twin Towers. You see a piece collapsing in the background over and over in these clips from different angles, different medias. But you're going to see that turn to dust in about 3 seconds. When it starts to crumble, I'll fix the side of that here. Hang on. Get that stuff out of the way. Now, get a load of it. I'll get it out of the way.
You can see large pieces
Watch
of the
it turn to
building falling.
dust.
You can see the smoke rising.
1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. Now imagine a 780, 900-foot tree falling straight down. Never seen a video like this in my life. First, it's a 20-second clip. Just watch the video.
There goes the second tower. Unfucking believable.
See that stack? That's about 800 foot high, solid metal. It falls straight down. Imagine a tree falling straight down. Then you can kind of wrap your mind around it. Imagine a tree that's 800 feet high, say 700 feet high, falling straight down through the path of greatest resistance. That's the core of the building, goes straight down. And so that whatever done the building wasn't, there was no nanothermite visible. You would have seen all the heavy sparks. If it was a nuclear explosion, it would have went all over the place instead of straight down into his footprint.
You've crushed up 15 stories below it. The top 15 stories are also going to be crushed. And so there's nothing left now to crush the rest of the building.
So the
release, which, you know, in this case, burned for
watch it disappear, top 15 stories. See that? So he's saying once the top 15 stories collapse 15 stories underneath it, watch it again, there's nothing left, no energy left to collapse the rest of the building. Now he's an engineer.
Which, you know, in this case, burned for a sustained
See
period
that?
of time over a very long.
So there's nothing left of the top part to crush the rest of the building. Will you give me that?
You've crushed up 15 stories below it. The top 15 stories are also going to be crushed.
Jet fuel didn't even bring down that tree, by the way. So the top 15 stories can't crush a whole building. That's not how that works. You can see it disintegrating in front of you. Now there's nothing left at this stage to crush the rest of the building. Now this is not me, but on top of that, it leaves these weird spirals. And we'll play that for you.
Not just to the financial markets themselves, but to
just
the
from a different angle.
Being questioned and
What's the top part of the building can't crush the whole building. It just doesn't work that way.
Tomorrow. I mean, how long can we expect them to be shut down?
The building falls apart on its own.
Well, there are so many sensitive issues to be dealt with. Not
just
the
like
least
the
of which would be
cars
security for
catching
the participants,
fire.
In those marketplaces downtown, the New York Stock Exchange being the principal.
And you see the big stack in the bottom? That's 700 to 800 feet high core of a building that turns to dust. It disintegrates right in front of you. I don't think that's an appropriate word. When you look at the heat signature of the building, there's nothing there to suggest that it's going to crush. It can crush a whole building. It's not like the whole building is weak. It's just these little sections. Once again, the top part can only crush with its own energy. It gets destroyed in the process of crushing anything below it, like the engineer was explaining to everybody. So look at the core there. That's the core. You should look up the core of the Twin Towers and you'll see people when they were building it. I didn't get the pictures. I couldn't find them today in time to bring them in, but it turns to dust. Look at it. Look at it. You see one piece tip over? And that's the end of the 911 show tonight. We're moving into the hurricane. Nobody probably cares at this stage. Let's get back into the regular. Hi, everybody. My apologies. Little problems with the audio tonight. Just give me a sec. Mic check 1 2. Should have done that earlier, Dana. I didn't think about it. Now I got everything smurfed up because I'd done all that work. It just struck me I should double check. Oops. That's the way it always goes for me, isn't it? I smurf up. So hard to do everything else, but this is the important stuff that supposed to have done. Now, there's a lot of conviction that this is not going to be anything worse than a hurricane hitting the coastline. And I'm going to play the cautious part because of the information I'm going to show you. We'll be following this hurricane closely. If it looks like it's going to be a 300-mile wide terrorist when it comes to shore, I'm going to keep on top of it because we covered. Now, last year there was 5 hurricanes that came ashore at 200 miles per hour plus. St. Martin's was hit with 262 miles per hour. These are unheard of. Nobody's houses or infrastructure is built to withstand 265 mile per hour gusts. And so the gust is the key word here. We're going to talk about, let's just explain what kind of damage at these big numbers. We're talking about 130 mile per hour coming ashore, maybe 150 or stronger, and maybe gusts to 200 miles per hour. We're talking about Fox is saying up to 3 feet of rain. These have to be taken serious because of the last year's supercell storm. So as the speed gets up to 75, 95 miles per hour, everything starts to become a projectile that'll do damage to you and everything around you. Once you get past 100 miles per hour, everything is a serious projectile. These storms will be coming ashore at much greater speeds than this. So even at 100 miles per hour, these are events. There's people downplaying it, but governments are not, and they're evacuating 1.3 million, 1.4 million people. South Carolina. It looks like North Carolina, and it also looks like Virginia is going to take a brutal beating. The top scale, when it hits 156, it becomes a Category 5. But when it's when it's blown at this speed, it's gusting already to a Category 5. Regularly, every few seconds, it's gusting to Category 5 plus. Last year, they were all Category 5s, but they downplayed them. Winds of 155 miles per hour, and you don't see the words gust, because gust will say 200 miles per hour coming ashore, right? That was symmetrical wherever we've seen that happening. Here, where they downplay it at 110 miles per hour and gust to 160 miles per hour, Corpus Christi, when it came ashore, it was actually blowing about 160 and gusting over 200. We have a lot. I covered that last year extensively. That was for Hurricane Harvey. And Hurricane Irma was the same thing. When that hit the outer islands, they were estimating 175, but when it hit St. Martin's and all those islands, it was actually cruising at 262 mile per hour gusts. Damage now in St. Martin's, the harbor is full of destroyed yachts, super yachts and super catamarans and everything else. These are like multi-million-dollar. We've seen Richard Branson sat out the storm down there. It was dramatic. Now, the storm that's coming in, just like, remember some of these headlines from Maria, too, in 2017. That was a brutal, that hit over 200 miles per hour on the outlying coastlines. So, Union of Concerned Scientists, today's article, the direction and northward extent of Florence's path makes it unusual. An atmospheric and oceanic condition in which Florence is brewing are contributing to the storm's outsized length for its location. The Satellite photos are showing us just a massive monster that has the potential to come along the coastline, creating these incredible storm surges. So it will do much more damage if it does something like that. There's a lot of suggestions because it's not doing what it's supposed to do. Now, you can't downplay a hurricane that's coming in at jumping from Category 4 to almost a Category 5. You hear them out there over and over. Almost a Category 5. At 150, it's gusting way past the Category 5 steady. I've been on boats on the ocean in hurricanes, and we washed up a couple of years ago in Charlotte by myself. And we done thousands of dollars worth of damage. It was just like nowhere near these winds. If I had been out there in these winds, I wouldn't be telling the story. So we got some articles to really try to bring the story home. I hope I'm wrong. I pray that I'm wrong. And I'm going to remind everybody, don't leave your pets home this time. I shouldn't say those words, I suppose. But don't leave your pets home. Find a way to take care of your pets. Bring them with you. The storm surges that are coming, don't leave. Don't stay in vulnerable locations where the storm surge is. If the wind is coming in and it's coming in hard, it looks like it's not slowing down. You've got no options but to get out. You'll lose everything if you don't anyway. So take what you can with you and get out, and go to higher ground if you can't go anywhere else, and get on the other side. Because if this comes to shore, like the last year, these seen 5 supercell storms in the Atlantic. That's Gallows Laugh, but we've never seen that before. Here we are at the start of the hurricane season. Now, I covered each of those storms last year because they were incredible. I've been covering them in the Pacific, but we've never seen a supercell, let alone 5 in 1 year. When you look at just that whole group of islands as you come in to the coast, that was devastated. They're still devastated. Many of these islands still don't got power. It's really, and to get it again the year after. Now, there's 2 other storms at the same time. Let me bring up the other screen. Got easier for me to concentrate. The direction of northward extent makes it unusual. And the atmosphere and oceanic conditions, we just covered that, Dana. I know. I smurfed up. So Florence's path, however, has been blocked by a ridge of high pressure in the atmosphere, which is essentially blocking the storm from moving northward and keeping it on a westward trajectory towards the coast instead. So this is why you're seeing all this controversy about it. Because everybody's like, well, it's not supposed to do it, but it's doing it. Somebody should have a big talk with that storm. 2 major hurricanes this far north are rare. Now, this is the worst that they've ever faced. So this gives it the precedent and gives it you have to give it the respect that it deserves. I can't play it down to what I'm seeing symmetrically throughout the media today. And so this is early in the game, which is the best time to get out and try to have a conversation for any of my followers that happen to be following my research. And I branch out and do weird stuff like this once in a while, as it's like a step back into, because I pretty well cover nuclear, not necessarily only, but necessarily for the 99% of the times. Vast majority of these hurricanes have been Category 1 storms. And together, the Carolinas have only been hit 3 times by Category 4 or above. Last time was 60 years ago. And so suggesting a Category 4 can come ashore is very, and this area now become complacent because we haven't had a major storm for 60 years. Like, we hear it every year. Shut up, bloody hillbilly amateurs. I've been here 60 years. I ain't seen no big storm. That's pretty convincing, right? When someone says that and means it and did that, and they're out there right now in the comment section, Dad, I've been here 60 years. How's it going? Don't worry. Got a little bit left. Right now, Florence's path, determined largely by the blocking ridge, is taking it westward to a wide swath of the Atlantic where temperatures are running above the normal. Right? And this is why we've seen all the supercell storms last year. This is why we've seen Miranti in China the year before. We've seen Haiyan in the Philippines exceeding 235 miles per hour on land. In the Philippines, in China, it took down 500 million trees just in one area, turned them into projectiles. In the Philippines, trees were blown up to 200 miles away. In the Philippines, was 235 sustained. And this was one of the first big supercell storms we've ever seen. This was from the heating of the Pacific Ocean from the meltdowns in Japan. So the storms are going to get much worse, much bigger. And of course, the plume covered all of North America. And so the Atlantic, not as bad, but heavily anyway. And this is why we're seeing these bizarre supercell storms, is a direct... Lost my spot there. Let me see. There it is. The expected storm surge will be amplified by higher than average sea levels. I go back now that we solve that riddle. It's projected to stay within the zone of warmer temperatures that will allow Florence to stay strong and indeed strengthen as it churns its way towards the coast. The water gets warmer, by the way. Okay? All right. I'm only telling you 500 more times. And then the storm surges could be much more severe. And if it does come ashore in the next, if it still maintains this current trajectory, where it's going to hit anywhere, up and down the coastline, it's going to be really severe at these numbers. Even the 300-mile swath itself becomes, even though there's lower numbers, way lower numbers on the outside of that, it's still very, very dangerous weather for humans and animals. Hurricane Florence, already a monster, and is due to strengthen as 1 million people are told to flee the U.S. East Coast. Now, there's a lot of nuclear in the path of these supercell storms. And a nuclear meltdown could happen if you lose power to these nuclear power plants and disable. Now, if they don't shut down the reactors, you can't just shut the reactors down. A lot of these areas are dependent upon the power because they demonized and vilified everything else in order to keep nuclear alive with no competition. So they can make their industrial... Keep going. Now, Chad Myers is actually not a very good source. I got other clips here where we called Chad out for being... Chad said there was no plume from Fukushima Nuclear Meltdowns, for instance. Crazy. Storm nears a Category 5 strength as it barrels towards the U.S. When you say near a Category 5, you're talking about just a couple of miles per hour. And so this is the game we watched all last year and frustrated the daylights out of me, where the Category 5 is just 5 miles away. But when you got a storm at 150, and you're like, well, no, it needs another 5 miles per hour. Well, that was just because that sending unit itself didn't say 155. Don't mean on the other side of it wasn't 155. And very well, at those speeds, you would suggest these things could get broken. Not many things work well at that speed, right? There's a lot to be taken into consideration, especially with the ocean heated up in the last 7 years is the direct result. We've seen 5 of the supercell storms last year. And we forget, don't we, how much damage that was, how we covered it every day, storm after storm after storm. It was inconceivable. It was exhausting just trying to find out if this was really happening, and then another storm and another storm. To see it in the Atlantic is frightening. Hurricane Florence has the potential to cause a massive damage parts of the southeast mid-Atlantic United States, and not just in the coastal areas where the storm aims to make landfall Friday morning. coming in on a layer of warm air too, so it can pick up a bit of speed. It might get here. You might have to. They're going to revise this on a constant, perpetual chain. There, Hurricane Florence could be the worst storm to ever hit north of Florida, or Virginia, or Carolina. And so, because they become complacent without getting a serious, we've never seen these storms before. For starters, okay, until Fukushima happened. And then we seen them in Philippines and Tonga, in China, in Taiwan. Supercell storms over 200 miles per hour sustained winds. Is your house designed for 200 miles per hour sustained wind? Gust. Puff and puff, you blow your house down. They weren't talking about 200 mile per hour winds at all, okay? They're talking like 60. We're talking about you can't hang on to something when that hits, and everything becomes a projectile. And if you don't believe me, go look at the footage from Irma and Maria and Hurricane Matthews and a few more of them, or the one that hit the Philippines. They still haven't recovered. 14 million people permanently displaced. They had their buildings blown away. River flooding likely begins Thursday. And we've seen, and now the way that coastline, you got all these inlets and fjords and these waterways. Remember, I can't remember the one that hit Texas last year. It sucked all the water out like a tsunami. But when you got big storm surges and heavy winds, what you end up with is the same effect as a tsunami. And so you got to be watching. If you're going to stay, you got to pay attention. And if it looks like this is actually going to hit land, you're going to have to abandon ship and get out of there. There's no way to survive it. We don't have the history or the legacy or the equipment, or we're not all Richard Bransons like last year, right? Strong sustained winds and gusts expected as the storm comes to shore on Thursday, likely persisting into the weekend. So this when it hits the coastline, it's just going to stall and it's going to start losing strength. But that's going to be a slow grind. They'll tell you, oh, it's going to come in and lose strength when it hit the coastline. No, it's going to come in, hit the coastline, stall, stop, and it's going to still be going, wah. So it's going to chew up everything in those areas, and it's going to really cause, if there's any pump to it when it comes to shore, that's the way it's going to play out, is what I'm saying to you. We don't know. I can't read the future magically, okay? I don't know what's going to happen in a couple of days' time. It's a couple days away. Risk for short-lived and weak tornadoes. By the way, don't forget about that kind of stuff. Tornadoes. And officials are out there saying, get out of Dodge. South Carolina, by the way, spent $9 billion in nuclear reactors that'll never run. Stole all the money. They hired as many contractors for kickbacks because they figured that the government will bail us out like they've done with every other reactor forever and ever and ever and ever. But South Carolina was like, no, I'm tired of you raising our bill. Stop it. They did. Somebody like, that's ridiculous. So when you look at a large section of coastlines like this, and so you got a supercell storm surges cruising in through there, picking up speed, funneling through these channels, it can get really stupid real quick. And so we remember last year there was amazing days and days and days of people coming from other counties with their boats and 4x4s to rescue people, because the government can't rescue you when that happens. They're moving the people out, but this storm can change. That infrastructure is not designed to handle that kind of outflow. It's chaos, no matter which way we look at it. And when you think about, there's all kinds of, the red number, you see the red, that's South Carolina, North Carolina, where they got tons of used nuclear fuel. Excuse me. So North Carolina has the most in that area stored of nuclear waste on top of that. And then the nuclear power plants are inland, but these storms can do devastating dumps of rains and floods, and you can disable these places with heavy winds. They're only designed to work in 55 to 65 miles per hour winds. A lot to be concerned about. So sites storing nuclear fuel and high-level radioactive waste is just another depiction. You can see this whole area has the potential to be a real nightmare, to be a serious nightmare. Since records began, only 10 major hurricanes have made landfall around this area. This one has the potential to blow them all out of the water. And so it's already a monster size, and it could be hitting a Category 5. They downplayed it last year. It'll be interesting to see what they do this year. Just because it gust heavily past their 157 boundary doesn't mean it's not a supercell storm. Doesn't mean once it hits 4, you got to treat it as a supercell, because parts of that is going to be supercells. A 4 is going to spawn tornadoes, which is supercells. We confirmed it last year repeatedly. So it's regaining strength as it gets closer to the coastline. By tomorrow, we'll have a really good idea. Projected path of Florence has changed regularly, but all the spaghettis are now. And once again, there is people out there are saying, right, it's probably not going to be as bad as everybody on the hype train is saying. But the hype train is the government themselves getting over 1 million people to get out of Dodge. And not only that, it's coming in on warm water than any other year in histories of hurricanes, 2 to 3 degrees warmer. These are significant numbers for temperature. And so I'm throwing, hope I'm wrong. That's all I can say. I just really, truly hope I'm wrong. But I'm letting you know the experience of what you saw last year. You might have been displaced and weren't able to keep up with the news. We happened to cover all 5 of the supercell storms last year. And that was like the work and effort and amount of material I brought to the table for each of those shows was over the top. 300, 400, 500, 600 pieces of information each day. And so that could happen again if we got 2 more large storms out in the Atlantic threatening to go the same routes as last year and be the same kind of intensity. I'm not making it up. I wish I was. I wouldn't say it actually. My shows, I do not over-exaggerate or misrepresent or misconstrue it without already understanding it. There's no need to talk about it. There's just too many other facets, minutiae of the subject to cover, rather than cover nonsense. I'm not a clickbait, whatever you want to call those people. I'm censored with 6 gag orders from the nuclear industry. And so I'm a researcher who also sometimes, when it comes to supercell storms, I have a particular fear of these suckers. And my history shows why, because nuclear has influenced the supercell storm's ability on these planets. But this is meant to give people who are not out there trying to figure things out and part of the crew that are familiar with my style and my normal routines will give me some exception tonight, I hope. It is the 9/11 anniversary, so the beginning of the show I covered the Twin Towers 17 years ago extensively with my own little twist. The grounding, back to the story. Important part to remember, because there's heavy rain coming, that the ground is already saturated from recent rains. It's a very good observation. Rivers are high already, and the storm will be moving slowly. On top of that, exacerbating the situation. It's a very scary rain event, potentially, because there's so much moisture in the ground. We've seen that in Texas last year, where they said it was going to be a foot of rain. It was something like 6 feet of rain or something. Like that one I hit Texas last year was still a disaster. They're going to run out of carpenters by the end of this year. All three governors urge residents to assemble emergency kits, including food, water. Oh, you want everybody to become a prepper. Now it's okay to be a prepper, because you say so. But everybody normally was a prepper, but we all got lazy because we got Walmart and supermarket. Oh, I'll get it anytime I want. But you don't, right? Because you become so used to it, so complacent. Regardless, hopefully it's not a Category 5, like the 5 last year. Dangerous Category 4 Hurricane Florence, likely to stall Pound, Carolina, and Virginia for days. And so these kind of predictions cannot be taken lightly. Everybody seems to bring wind and waves, but because the ground is saturated, because there's so much rain coming with it, then you really got to keep an eye on this heavily, because it has all the potential to be a monster and nothing like you've ever seen. And look at this area is not used to getting hit with high winds, and they're not putting in the factor. Most people are not putting in the factor you got a warmer ocean. When you look at the storm surge, that tells the story all on its own. Right? Look at the storm surge. Now imagine that it's actually might be a little bit more than that to be safe, because moving water in this environment, you cannot save yourself. And it's highly unlikely somebody's going to come. And because everybody, once again, watch it closely before you move, so you don't waste your money, because I know how precious it is. By the way, we got to raise money. We got so much work to get done. Remind everybody you can donate under my video or at my website, thenuclearproctologist.org. You'll find a button right away. Or you go to PayPal and type in Dana Durnford. Dana Durnford right there at hotmail.com. At PayPal, there's a link directly under my video directly to that stuff where you can donate. I'll fix the mic for the next show tomorrow. And that's the end of the show. We're going to be watching the storm. If it looks like it's going to come ashore at a Category 4 that they'll admit to, we have to assume it's going to be a lot worse than what they admit to. And so I'll be covering it and watching it. We send our well wishes to everybody in harm's way in that part of the country. This is a big storm. I generally don't cover this stuff. I'm covering it tonight because that's an important part of the nuclear meltdowns in Japan. And they have a history of downplaying it where you suffer, where you lose all your assets. It's best that you be prepared to move your belongings, and if it looks serious, immediately get out of harm's way and take the chance because of the storm surge if you're in those areas. Great concern for me. I just spent 4 months with those 2 boats on the ocean researching. I kind of know a thing or two about this stuff, right? My apologies for the audio. It was screwed up a little bit tonight. It's acceptable, I suppose. We send out hugs for everybody. Thank you, everybody. God bless everyone. We'll see everybody tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, British Columbia, Canada time. Right here, Beautiful Girl by Dana on YouTube, where I will have my shit together. I swear. Thank you, everybody. See everybody in the comments section. I'll pop in and read them in a little bit. And so it looks like a bad storm. If you live in that area, you should definitely be paying attention nonstop from here on out. And I hope that it loses some intensity, and hope it don't hit anybody. But at least I hope it loses some of that speed, even though it's warm water. I'm going to keep an eye on it and raise the alarm if it's worrisome. Right now, it's very worrisome. So hugs for everybody. Take care, folks.